So we've been talking a lot recently about all the problems with Trump. I mean, 91 criminal charges, 4 indictments. This is nothing to scoff at. And some of the cases appear to be slam dunk cases based on the evidence that we already know. So there's a lot to say about how he's dragging the Republican Party down by his mere existence and inability to step the hell aside. But that doesn't mean everything is flowers and roses and hunky-dory on the Democratic side. In fact, quite the contrary. So here we have a new poll. Look at this, guys. 77% in new poll say Biden is too old to be effective if reelected. More than 3/4 of Americans say in a poll released Monday that President Biden is too old to be effective if reelected to the White House. The Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs survey found that Americans were more likely to say age would be a problem for Biden rather than former President Trump, who is just a few years younger than his successor. Okay, so let me just reflect on that here for a second real quick. Trump just appears to have more energy. I don't want to say he's a good talker, because he's not. He has those ridiculous sentence fragments, and sometimes he says embarrassing things, and sometimes he can't pronounce words, like when he tries to say the word origin, and he says oranges. Anyway, he just appears more vibrant, let's say, than Biden, who really, really is struggling, and sometimes can't even get out full sentences, and sometimes looks like he's falling asleep, and all that stuff. So on this particular issue, even though I definitely prefer Biden to Trump overall, I think it's true that Biden looks like his age impacts him much more than Trump looks like his age impacts him. Also, keep it real, I think that the fact that Trump does the whole let me cake my face full of tanner or orange foundation, and he dyes his hair blonde, I do feel like that makes him appear younger. Even though he sort of looks ridiculous as well, it's also one of those things that it just sort of tricks everybody into thinking, oh, he's younger and, more vibrant than he actually is. If Trump was like bald and pale, he would appear to be the insane grandpa that he is on looks alone. According to the poll, 77% of Americans, including 89% of Republicans and 69% of Democrats, said Biden is too old to be effective for 4 more years. The AP noted that the negative view of Biden's age is held across age groups, not just by younger people. On the other hand, about half of Americans said Trump is too old for the White House, and Democrats were more likely than Republicans to say Trump's age makes him ineffective for office. Well, that's kind of hilarious. But to be fair, Democrats are being consistent, because 69% of them say Biden's age is a problem here. Democrats, Republicans, and independents all said they wanted to see age limits imposed on the president. Jesus Christ. Congress and the Supreme Court. So they're saying apparently a majority across the board want to see age limits, not just on the presidency, but for Congress and the Supreme Court. About 2/3 of Americans surveyed backed an age limit for the White House and Congress, as well as a mandatory retirement age for justices. 66% support age limits for presidential candidates, 68% support limits for the House and the Senate, and 67% support mandatory retirement age for the Supreme Court. Now, my take on this, I'm in favor of term limits for the Supreme Court, but I'm not in favor of just a hard age limit. And I'm actually in the minority on this one, apparently. I'm against most Americans here because, see, the problem to me isn't the person's age. The problem is, well, how competent are you at that age? Somebody can be 85 years old or 88 years old, and if they're still mentally with it and physically with it enough to do the job, I wouldn't want to arbitrarily discriminate against them based on their age. I think that's messed up. But I do think what people are doing here is they're using age as a moniker for, like, you didn't just lose a step, you lost like 7 steps, you could barely get through a sentence, and you're physically falling apart in front of us. So I understand where people are coming from. I would just say you have to evaluate more on a case-by-case basis and go based off of how people are mentally, how they are physically, and not just use age as a stand-in for that. There are other options running. I don't like RFK Jr. I think he's a crank. But he's running. I do like Marianne Williamson. I think she's awesome. She's running. And it's weird that the media is willing to go to the point of saying, oh, looks like Biden's age is really a problem, bro. It's a real problem. This is an issue for him. And then they'll actively, avoid doing anywhere near enough coverage of Biden's opponents. Why? Because the DNC has spoken. Democratic leadership has spoken. Most of the media outlets are sympathetic to corporate Democrats. And so it's just like they are lying by omission when they don't talk about Marianne and RFK nearly enough. Now, again, I don't like RFK. I despise RFK. But he should be covered. He should be discussed. even if it's just to pick apart his policy proposals to say, oh, this doesn't really make much sense, he should still be discussed. Marianne should definitely be discussed more. But instead, it's like we're heading right for the iceberg. And it's like we've given ourselves, there's enough time to actually turn the ship away. And we're just like, no, let's just keep going towards the iceberg because I see no other path. But there are other paths. So I guess that's what's frustrating to me, man. That's what's frustrating, is that there are other options. There are other options. People who are much more with it physically and mentally. Somebody who has a better policy platform in Marianne Williamson running in the Democratic primary. And it's just like, no, let's show the poll about how virtually everybody in the country is like, God damn, this guy's too old and he's falling apart. But also let's insist that he's the only option. I cannot square that circle, no matter how hard I try. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.